Hello my darlings and welcome back to Rebel with a Plan. Today I have a lot of baking and prep work that I need to get done, so I thought I would bring you along with me while I do that, because why not? We are going to be making garlic Italian seasoning bread and we're going to make jalapeno cheddar bread, and then I'm going to wash and prep my vegetables for dinners for the next couple nights. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So this is probably the easiest base yeast bread recipe you're ever going to find. So you're going to do 1 packet of yeast. You're going to do just a little bit of sugar to feed the yeast. And then you want 1.5 cups of warm, not hot water. You don't want it hot because if it's too hot, it will kill the yeast. So you just want it warm. And you're going to stir that together. And we're going to let that bloom. And since I'm making 2 different loaves today, we're going to do that step twice because I want them to bloom together. So 1 packet of yeast, clean spoon, and we're going to do a little bit of sugar. And check that water, warm water. And we're going to stir that in, and we're just going to let that sit and bloom for about 5 minutes. And you can see this one is already blooming, and that's what we want. We want just bubbles and floaters on the top of that water. While that finishes blooming, reach in front of the camera. I'm going to move those to the side so they can keep doing what they're doing. And I'm going to cut up the jalapenos for the jalapeno cheddar bread. They're already washed. I like to wear gloves when I cut hot peppers because if I don't, I will hurt myself. I'm also going to... So they say that the seeds and the pith inside, the white stuff, is what makes it spicy. I do not know if I believe that or not, because it feels like some peppers are hot and some peppers aren't. And I don't know, I don't want to bite into seeds and pith and stuff. So I just pull those out and it stays plenty spicy even without all of that stuff in there. So I don't know, we'll see. I don't know that I believe that. That feels like an old wives' tale. So now that they're all seeded and ready to go, we're going to cut them all into strips, and we're going to chop them pretty finely. Now you'll find, and I'll probably say this again later in this video, a lot of the way that I bake, I kind of just measure with my heart. The base recipe is always the same, and that will be linked, or that will be, typed out in the description box for you for the just basic easy bread. It's 1 packet of yeast, a little bit of sugar. I mean, there's not even a set amount for that. 1.5 cups of warm water. You want it 105 to 115 maybe degrees Fahrenheit. And then 3 cups of flour ish. And that's just the base recipe with a little bit of salt, and that is going to give you some amazing kind of rustic bread. And then you just add on, seasonings or vegetables or whatever that you want to add to that base recipe, and you don't have to adjust any of the other stuff in it. You just stick with 1.5 cups of water, a packet of yeast, 3 cups of flour, and some salt. And that is the basic rustic bread recipe. And we'll get into, you know, how you bake it, times, things like that, obviously, as we get closer to baking. But for now, I am going to finish chopping up these jalapenos, and then we will get back to making the bread. So we've got a nice big pile of chopped up jalapenos. We've got our bloomed yeast mix going here. So from here, we are going to start adding in our ingredients. So I always do like 1.5 cups of flour first, and I will mix that in and get it all incorporated. And once it's kind of like a thick batter consistency, then I will add my add-ons in, my seasonings, my vegetable stuff like that, just to make sure it's fully incorporated. And then I will add the other cup, 2.5 cups of flour to get the consistency that I want. So once that is mixed, I'm going to put in a healthy dose of salt. That is a coarse salt. And then for the jalapeno cheddar, I get this everything bagel seasoning jalapeno flavor at Aldi. It's like $1.89 a jar, and the jar lasts a really long time. So that's what I like to put into the jalapeno cheddar. And I do like a healthy dose of that. This has sesame seeds, sea salt, roasted garlic, toasted onion, dehydrated jalapeno pepper, poppy seed, and natural flavor. Just generic natural flavor, you know how that goes. And I'll mix that in first. Get that nice and incorporated, and then I will dump in my jalapenos. I don't know if I'm gonna put half of that in, see how it looks, and see if it needs more. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do all of that. Just scrape all them jalapenos in there, give that a good stir. So this is a dough whisk. I guess I should have mentioned that. You absolutely do not need a dough whisk to make this bread. You can do it with a fork. You can do it with your hands, I guess, if you want to. This kind of bread, that would be kind of messy. But you can seriously just do this with a fork, and it would be just as easy. I'm sure you could do it in a stand mixer, but I happen to have a dough whisk, so that's what I use. So now that this is all mixed in and incorporated, I'm going to put another cup of flour. I'm going to stir that, and then I'm just going to see what the consistency is like before I put in the other half, because I don't always need it. It is pretty dry out today, so it might need all of the flour, but we'll have to see. It's a pretty loose, sticky dough, so really... I'm going to do just another sprinkle. It doesn't need much more. And you really can't mess this up. Even if you just measured out the 3 cups it called for, it would turn out. It's just the most foolproof bread recipe I've ever seen. And it's, you know, adapted from a couple other people's recipes. But it's just so easy. And it's pretty much good when you can go like this and it will pull the dough off the fork or the dough whisk or whatever. So we're going to let that sit. I don't put the cheese. So the water's warm. So I don't put the cheese in now. I do it right before I bake it because I don't want it to I don't know what would happen if I put the cheese into this warm dough, right? So I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to let it rise. It's usually ready to go in about 4 hours. You can let it rise up to 8 hours, if you're busy, if you want to do it first thing in the morning for dinner, whatever. So I'm going to cover this up, and then I'm going to let it rest, and we're going to get started on the garlic Italian bread next. Okay, so we've got a nice healthy bloom going on this one, and we are going to go in the same order. We're going to put about 1.5 cups of flour into that mixture, dough whisk or a fork, and we're going to stir that together. Until we get a thick batter consistency, and then healthy scoop of salt on that, and we're going to do garlic powder, measure with your heart. I'll just use the rest of that, and Italian seasoning, which I just bought this Wednesday. If you haven't seen that grocery haul, go check it out. It was a good one, I think. I like to think they're all good, but that's just me. So we're going to sprinkle in some Italian seasoning, and we're going to mix that up until it's fully incorporated. Oh my gosh, it smells amazing already. Flour, incorporate that, that's a little stickier than I want it. Just a tiny bit more, and you're just going to kind of, fold it in. You just fold it in, David. Fold it in. Does anybody else love Schitt's Creek? If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it because it is hilarious. All right, so we folded in that flour. Just give it a quick. There we go. All right, and that one is done as well. And we're just going to put a tight plastic wrap seal on that to kind of keep the heat in. And we're going to put that and the other one someplace warm, which is not hard now. It is going to be in the 90s today in Michigan on May 31st, which is crazy. So we've got our Italian garlic bread and our jalapeno bread, and we're just going to set those aside and let them rise for 4, 6, 8 hours, and we will come back and see what they look like. I'll show you how to fold in the cheese. It's been about 3 hours, and my dough has doubled, both of them. And so we are going to get started on the next steps for this rustic bread. Now, the only thing that might be an issue for other people is that to get a good crust, you have to have a pan with a lid. I have these Dutch ovens that are like heavy duty with lids. The lid is going to be really, really helpful in getting like a crunchy crust on the bread. You can use like a loaf pan with another loaf pan covering the top to get that, but it creates like steam inside that helps create a crust. So you will need a pan with a lid. And I'm going to put both of these in the oven, turn the oven on to 450 and let it come up to temperature with these pans inside. And then we're going to beat down the dough. I'm going to mix in the cheese. So let's get that started. All right, we're going to start with the Italian bread because I don't care if the seasonings get mixed between them. So to beat down the dough, it just means you're going to start pulling at it to get some of the air out. And I usually scrape down the sides of the bowl. And you don't have to do much to it. You just want to knock the air out, and it's going to sit until the oven and those pans are preheated to 450 degrees. And then this is where I'm going to put the cheese in to the breads. So I've already got that shredded here. This is about, I think, like half a brick of cheese. I'm going to sprinkle some on before I beat it down. And I'm just going to fold in the cheese. I'm going to fold the dough over the cheese to get it well incorporated. And like I said, you can't really mess this bread up, so you can't over beat it or over mix it. It's not going to make it tough if you have to sit here for a while with these forks to get the cheese incorporated. I might not need all of this cheese now that I'm looking at it. We're going to dig right down in and just keep folding the dough over the cheese to make sure that it works its way all the way through that dough. Oh, both of these smell so good. There is nothing better than the smell of freshly baked bread, except maybe bread dough. Because even in its uncooked state, this smells incredible. Okay, so I didn't end up using all of that cheese. That's plenty. So maybe like a quarter of a brick would probably be enough. And we're just going to let that rest while the oven preheats. And as soon as those pans and the oven come up to temperature, we will get on our way. Okay, so we've got the oven and the pans preheated to 450 degrees. I'm going to pull them out with oven mitts, obviously. 1, 2. It is very, very important that you remember to use your oven mitts when you take the lids off. I have made the mistake in the past of grabbing a lid, so that's a mistake you're only going to make once. So you're going to hose down your pans with cooking spray, and then you're going to grab, I just use a rubber spatula, and decide which is going in what. So we're going to put the Italian bread in the round pan. And I'll scrape down the sides to make sure that it all gets in there. And then for the Italian bread, I always sprinkle the top with coarse salt. Probably more than I should, but you know, salt and butter just makes everything taste better. So you're going to sprinkle that all over the top of that one. And then we're going to do the jalapeno cheddar. Scrape the sides of that. I'm going to push it out a little to make sure it gets that square shape that I want. And then I'm going to take that everything bagel seasoning and I'm going to sprinkle that over the top of that one. All right, and then we're gonna put the lid, we're gonna put our oven mitts back on. We're gonna put our lids on. And these are gonna go back in a 450-degree oven for 17 minutes. And then we're gonna take the lids off and we're gonna bake them for another 15 to 20. So those are in there, and we will be back with our finished product. And I can't wait to show you how good this is gonna look. And now for the grand reveal of our beautiful bread. Here is the jalapeno cheddar. And here is the Italian garlic. Don't they look amazing? Oh, and they taste incredible, which I know because I've made them dozens of times. They are beautiful and crusty and just so great. So you're going to want to let your bread sit for at least 20 to 30 minutes before cutting into it. If you can stand it, try to let it cool all the way. I personally keep the jalapeno cheddar loaf in the refrigerator, and my husband will toast it in the morning. Just because with the cheese in it, I feel like it molds faster on the counter, so we just go ahead and keep that one in the refrigerator. And then the Italian, we are going to eat this whole loaf tonight for dinner. Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But it will last like 2 to 3 days on the counter. It'll last about 3 to 4 days in the fridge. Like I said, you'll just probably want to heat up the bread or toast it in some way if you're going to keep it in the refrigerator, because the refrigerator will make it lose its crusty crust, as it were. So that was a very fun video. I know that I had said I was going to be like actually prepping, but this video is already hella long, and I didn't think that you needed to see me chopping onions and cubing up zucchini. So I just did that off camera. I hope that you had fun hanging out with me today. I hope that you try out this bread. If you do your own kind of add-ins, please let me know, because I'm always looking for new ways to dress up and change out this awesome, easy bread recipe. And yeah, so have a great day. I love you so much. I will see you soon. Bye. Hey guys, so if you liked this video, then you are going to love this video. Check it out.